Welcome to Thoughts for Your Life's Journey podcast. In our series today, we will be exploring the Enneagram, which is about balancing the intelligence of the head, heart, and body and using them correctly. In this podcast, we will also be discussing how using the Enneagram can be a transformative experience, and that it's not just about knowing your type, and also it's about using the process of how you can choose the tools that bring you choice. What's more is that while the Enneagram is based on modern psychology, its origins lie in the distant past of the classical world and ancient Egypt. Today, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Robert Hutchinson, a personal and professional development coach who specializes in the Enneagram-based self-awareness training to facilitate a transformative leadership development that is effective and sustainable. He helps clients decode their personality operating system through a unique combination of world-class coaching and powerful self-discovery training. Robert is also a co-founder of the Gay Happiness Project, a popular mental health well-being program for gay men. Alongside his credentials, Robert is researching the origin of the Enneagram in ancient Egypt. He has presented at conferences in Egypt, Europe, and has written articles on the use of the Enneagram. Welcome, Robert.
Thanks for inviting me, Nita. It's lovely to be here.
Have I missed anything in terms of your intro at all?
I don't think so. I think you've got everything nicely covered there.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Robert, because whilst I know a little bit about the Enneagram, I'm sure I will learn a lot more. So firstly, my curiosity is around, what is the Enneagram? Do a stupid version of what an Enneagram is, really.
Yeah, sure. So the Enneagram is a symbol, and it's also a system of typology. So the symbol consists of a circle, and there are 9 points around the circle, which represent 9 typologies or 9 strategies for being an effective human being. The symbol has a circle. It has a triangle in the middle, which represents the 3 aspects of the 3 intelligence centers, and then the 9 points or the 9 types around the circle are connected by connecting lines, which represent how different typologies or different strategies work together in combination, work together to complement each other and help each person at each point of the Enneagram to be a better human being, to be more rounded, quite literally rounded. It is a circle, to be more rounded and to be more balanced. And that's a big part of what Enneagram is about. So it's a system of 9 personality strategies that are interrelated and interconnected, and it's built around this very kind of interesting symbol that we see. And if your listeners want to look up that symbol, just search for Enneagram on Google, you'll be able to see what the symbol looks like.
Great, lovely. So out of all the kind of tools that we can go and be trained in, what made you become interested in the Enneagram, Robert?
Yeah, so I was training as a coach 10 years ago, and as part of that training, I was really interested in how people work. So I did pretty much every psychometric test going, and the Enneagram was one of them. And at that time, 10 years ago, it seemed to say a little bit about me, but it didn't connect with me. It didn't resonate with me. And then it came knocking on my door another time, and I thought I need to have a look again at this one because it keeps coming up. It's becoming more popular. So I had a consultation with an Enneagramologist in the States, and it was 90 minutes long, and I came off that call and I knew something had shifted. I knew something had permanently changed in the way that the Enneagram was describing my experience very, very precisely and very intimately. It was able to connect different aspects of my experience, different aspects of my personality, and the way the way they were structured together was so logical, and it seemed very practical as well. So I still remember that call from 2017. I came off it and knew that this was very different to any coaching training I'd done. I'd also done personal development. I'd done therapy, and it seemed to be speaking to something much more fundamental than I'd been able to get to through those other approaches. So I started reading about the Enneagram. I started learning more about it, and the more I learned, the deeper it got, and the more I kind of got drawn into this system that does seem to be incredibly precise, and able to describe the human condition, the human experience in its different forms, in ways that are incredibly helpful, but for myself personally, and then also obviously for clients as well.
So just being sort of digging around a little bit, I can hear the passion that's arisen from your wow, how it hit you. Can you give us a glimpse of, since 2017, what stayed with you that is still kind of resonating?
Yeah, no, that is such a good question, because I think a lot of, there are a lot of quick fixes out there in the personal development and transformational market, if you like, and there isn't a quick fix. And an Enneagram is not about quick fix. It's about starting on a journey of self-observation. The Enneagram is incredibly precise, and it's brilliant at saying, look over here and pay attention to this. And it shows you what it can be really helpful for you to notice in terms of behavior, in terms of thinking, and in terms of emotional intelligence as well. So it's what started in 2017 was a journey. It's a journey that I'm still on. It's a journey that I'm very passionate, as you can tell, about being on. And I'm incredibly honored and grateful to be able to take clients on as well. So yeah, it's a journey of self-discovery. It's a journey of self-awareness. And what the Enneagram helps is self-observation. Pay attention to this. And here's some other stuff that you might not be aware of in your blind spots as well.
So I can hear that you integrate this in your work with your coaching. Can you give us a couple of examples of how you integrated with your coaching clients and what has been the benefits for them?
Yeah, so the Enneagram describes 9 strategies of being human. And as human beings, we all want 2 things. We want to be liked and loved, and we want to be safe and secure. That's it. And the Enneagram is great at describing these 9 strategies for being liked and loved and feeling safe and secure. So I work with clients. We would do an assessment first. We would do a debrief or a consultation around the assessment to verify their dominant Enneagram type. It's really important with any psychometric that the psychometric doesn't tell you who you are, and it doesn't tell you any more about you than you know about yourself already. So it's very much a process of self-validation. Okay, this is what the assessment says. Does this fit for you? How well does it fit? What might be useful here for you, and what might not be useful? So it's very important when working with something like the Enneagram that we're working with an individual and unique person. So the first thing is really to help people understand their strategy, their dominant strategy, or their type, their Enneagram type, and it's to validate it very much, and it's to validate their uniqueness as well as a person. So yes, there are these underlying types, but each person, you, me, client are completely unique. So it's working with the strategy and then the uniqueness. And that really helps clients to kind of understand the base, I talk about the personality operating system, but then also to celebrate their individuality and their uniqueness at the same time. So that's kind of the starting point. And then the Enneagram doesn't just kind of stamp people with one type. There's what we talk about, a dominant type that kind of runs the show. And the more we're reliant on one strategy, the less choices and options we've got, the more restricted we are in the way that we see the world and interact with the world. So the Enneagram is great at describing these pathways to growth. So for each Enneagram type, it's connected with two other types that are complementary. So those behaviors or those worldviews help a client to minimize their reliance on their dominant type, if you like. So what it does, it allows clients to step back, to observe, to be more conscious in their choices, to be more conscious in their decisions, and to have more control over how they respond and act. So that's really the process in two big blocks.
Right. So I guess what I'm taking away from here is the sense around, and there are no rights or wrongs in terms of the 9 types. It's which one are you working with, and maybe that you're over reliant on in terms of your type, and how you could balance yourself in terms of bringing other elements of the Enneagram, which would give you greater choice. Have I got that right?
Yeah, exactly right. And the dominant type, it's partly nature and it's partly nurture, but this would be a strategy that has got us through childhood. Whatever, transitioning from being a newborn baby to a fully fledged adult is a pretty intense process over about 20 years. So we come to rely on one of these strategies in childhood, and it works for us. It gets us through childhood. But then in adulthood, we kind of settle into the habit of being us, if you like. And each type has advantages and each type has disadvantages. So as an adult, we can kind of get more aware of the advantages of our type, but then we can also be less reliant on the one type, the one strategy. And we can use some of the other strategies more proactively and with more consciously, so that it gives us more choice as an adult, and it gives us more options for kind of dealing with ourselves, dealing with other people, dealing with the environment around us.
So also what it triggers for me, Robert, it is a sense around getting to know our shadow side as well. So as a part of the dominant side is, like with Jung's work and other sort of psychotherapeutic work, there is always the shadow side. So it's about bringing the shadow side more into the awareness, I think, as well, because certainly often it's hidden for us. Well, certainly for myself, I think. So it brings it. Another question that, when you're debriefing or when you're working with a client, how much resistance do people have around, oh no, this is not me? Or, I mean, you're saying that when you got your 90-minute feedback, you went, wow. Do other clients, have a different experience? I mean, I'd even add to my own experience, because I'm always, when I got myself Enneagrammed years ago, I'm going, I'm not sure. I wonder if that was resistance, or I don't think it was about not knowing myself. I think it was sort of like none of it fit in perfectly for me in any of the 9 types. I think I'm asking you several questions in there. So go for whichever one that you want to answer to.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is about potential resistance and debriefing. So there's 2 things here to pay attention to. So one is the person's defensiveness, if you like. So the more defensive a person may be, the less likely they may be to to want to look at themselves, to look at themselves in the mirror, if you like. And then, the more open to this kind of work that somebody is, the more open they may be to kind of looking at that reflection in the mirror, which the Enneagram provides. So, it's very important as a practitioner to be very sensitive around that. It's not, it's as an Enneagram professional, it's not my job to kind of impose the Enneagram on anybody at all, and it's to meet a client where they are. So you've got that aspect, and then you've got the aspect of type, and different types will have different defense mechanisms, and some types will be more defensive than others to this kind of work. So yeah, you're working with both the actual type structure of the Enneagram, and then also with kind of meeting the human being in front of you, if you like. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all of it. It's on the debrief aspect of it and how someone walks you through that. Another question I have is something around the center of intelligence. And what does that mean working with the Enneagram? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So the Enneagram has 9 types. But actually, the Enneagram is at its fundamental structure is based around the 3 intelligence centers that we have. So we have an intelligence of the body, that's the here and now, the nervous system, the senses, our orientation in time and space. That's the intelligence of the body. It's very intuitive. It's very instinctive. We have the intelligence of the head. So that's the logic, the reason, the data, the information, plans, analysis, etc. So it's very rational, logical intelligence. And then we also have the intelligence of the heart. So that is our emotional landscape. That's our emotional intelligence. It's how we feel connected. It's how we feel seen or validated as a person. It's very much around connection and relationships. So how we feel related to another person. And the Enneagram speaks very, very clearly to these 3 centers of intelligence. And we tend to have one of them that dominates, and then that links to the different Enneagram types. And in the kind of Enneagram literature and in my experience of working with the Enneagram, what I've seen is how utterly different these 3 types of people are. The head type people, the body type people, and the heart type people. It's almost like there are 3 versions of being a human being, and they see the world so differently. They act, they have different energies, they have different focus of attention. So although kind of the gateway into Enneagram is often by your type, your individual type, the kind of the macro teaching, the headline teaching that is really useful to start with is to look at the body, the head, and the heart center, and how you're using those centers of intelligence, because they become mixed up, they become scrambled up through our type as it becomes more and more kind of dominant.
Lovely. There's millions of questions I want to ask you, but can you as a last question, touch on the Enneagram in terms of the classical world and what's the significance of that?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a question that you've started at the end of it. We could be here for an hour on that one question. So my starting point for a conversation about this is really how advanced the ancient world was. In terms of technology, they had methods of manipulating stone. We have no idea how they did that. In philosophy as well, and also in psychology. 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greeks were far more advanced than we are in philosophy and psychology, and it's based on human beings watching each other. We spent tens of thousands of years watching each other, and it's what humans do. We're tribal. We need to be in a group. We need to understand how the group and each other operates. So the kind of psychology, how human beings work was incredibly advanced in the ancient world, and going back to ancient Egypt, which is where the structures behind the Enneagram originate. We don't know where the Enneagram symbol itself came from, and that's something that I'm researching at the moment. But the kind of structures and the theory and the insight behind the Enneagram is definitely evidenced in ancient Egypt. So the headline is they understood each other better than we do, really. So the Enneagram foundations were put together then, and then the actual Enneagram that we use today developed in the 20th century. So It was brought to the West by someone called Gurdjieff, in the form of the symbol and the three centers, and then it was developed later on in the 60s and 70s.
So in terms of tips, in terms of if someone is interested in getting to know more about the Enneagram, what tips and resources could you offer?
Yeah, so you can do a free test online. There's plenty of free tests. They're okay. I would caveat that they're not always accurate, but it can be a good start to see if there seems to be a fit and whether it's interesting. Beyond that, I would recommend getting a paid-for assessment and a paid-for consultation, because then you're getting a more accurate result in terms of assessment, and you're going to be working with somebody, a professional who knows what they're doing.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Robert. This has been a very enlightening conversation, a lot more than I was aware of in terms of the Enneagram. Certainly the intelligence, the center of intelligence is really what's that I'm taking away from myself today. The head, the heart, and the head, body, and heart. I think
that's right. You've got it.
And I think this has been a really powerful awareness for me in understanding what the Enneagram is. I should look at it in a very different way. So thank you very much for your time, Robert.
Great, you're very welcome. Thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you.